Ecosystems always go through periods of growth and change until they reach a state of equilibrium in which the communities of organisms are fairly stable. However, ecosystems are often exposed to disturbances that upset their natural balance. The most extreme disturbances, such as glaciation, floods, and volcanoes, can completely wipe out an entire ecological community. For example, when a volcano erupts, the lava flow buries the old ecosystem under a thick layer of hot molten rock, so that the previous ecosystem is completely destroyed. Over a tremendous amount of time, the hardened lava will erode and turn back into soil. As the new soil develops, a few pioneer species will colonize it, and eventually they will give way, in successive stages, to other colonizing plants, such as grasses and shrubs that can live in thin soil. And then finally trees, until a stable climax community of organisms is achieved. This type of ecosystem formation is called primary succession because it starts from scratch and uses essentially nothing from the pre-existing ecosystem. In contrast to the most extreme disturbances, other events such as logging, insect infestations, powerful storms, and forest fires often destroy a lot of the existing stable ecosystem, but leave some of it behind. In these situations, the remaining soil will contain seeds, roots, and other leftover plant materials, so small plants and grasses usually begin to regrow fairly quickly from those remnants, and over time, a new ecosystem takes shape that resembles its predecessor. This process, often observed in logged-off and burned-off forests, is called secondary succession because it stems from elements of the previous ecosystem that managed to survive the disturbance. Much of the climate change that is taking place on our planet these days is believed to be the result of increased levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, a gas with excellent heat-trapping properties that is thought to be behind the Earth's well-documented rise in temperature. This added heat is creating areas of extreme drought, as well as causing powerful, unusually damaging storms. And diminishing winter snowfall in areas such as the Rocky Mountains is threatening water supplies to millions of people, as well as harming agriculture all across the region. However, overall, one of the most noticeable effects of the Earth's increased temperature is the melting of polar ice and of glaciers, as well as the thawing of the Arctic tundra. In places like Greenland and parts of Antarctica, the rate of ice loss has nearly doubled in recent years. The melting ice alters the habitats of species that live in very cold places, such as polar bears, and also contributes to rising sea levels worldwide. However, sea level rise is also produced by the thermal expansion of water due to the Earth's ever-increasing temperature. An example of how the level of the ocean affects ecosystems is seen in coastal mangrove swamps like this one. Mangroves are trees that often form dense clumps in shallow areas where fresh water and salt water meet. Mangrove swamp ecosystems protect low-lying shorelines and support a large collection of creatures that live among their roots, as well as populations of birds, monkeys, and reptiles that live among their branches. In some coastal areas, such as the Florida Everglades, rising sea levels are making the water too salty in the existing mangrove habitats. And this is not only causing a die-off of some of these trees, it is also promoting their migration into freshwater inland ecosystems, where mangroves are starting to take over the already dwindling habitats of animals such as alligators, bald eagles, and panthers that dwell in the Everglades swamps. Increasing ocean temperatures are causing a variety of problems with marine ecosystems too. The added warmth encourages coral diseases and promotes the invasion of reefs by harmful non-native species. And this is causing widespread destruction of these beautiful and extremely diverse ecosystems. The higher water temperatures are expected to result in migrations of fish populations out of the traditionally warmer seas into cooler waters. The added carbon dioxide in our atmosphere is also causing the oceans to become more acidic due to the increasing levels of carbonic acid that CO2 creates when it's dissolved in water. And, in addition, ocean acidification is starting to take its toll on corals, on shell formation in a variety of organisms, and on marine food chains in general. The climate changes currently taking place on our planet have brought about a rise in global temperatures and have created drought conditions in certain areas. Such climate-induced stresses weaken already established ecosystems, making it much more difficult for them to resist the attacks of destructive organisms. A good example of this is seen in the massive pine beetle infestations that are currently plaguing many mountainous areas in the western United States. When these beetles bore into pine trees, they leave behind a fungus that blocks up the tree's internal water and nutrient transport systems. When this happens, the tree's needles dry up, turn orange, and eventually drop off, leaving behind a largely dead forest. Very cold temperatures kill beetle eggs and larvae, which typically winter over under the pine tree's outer bark. But over the past decade, as global temperatures have risen, so have the average winter temperatures in the Rocky Mountains. And at the same time, their forests have become weakened by the prolonged drought. These two climate-related events have combined to allow beetle populations to increase quite rapidly and wipe out huge numbers of trees. A very similar situation is seen in certain hardwood forests in the U.S. involving another destructive insect called the emerald ash borer, a creature that was accidentally introduced to North America from Asia in the wood of packing crates. The borer's larvae feed on the ash tree's inner bark. This disrupts the transport of nutrients and water inside the tree, which soon destroys it. Very cold weather will kill the emerald ash borers, but generally milder winter temperatures and drier conditions in the forests have allowed them to proliferate and cause a lot of problems. In addition, the rising temperatures and drought that's been occurring in the Sonoran Desert region of North America are forcing some native species to migrate north or to higher elevations to places with cooler temperatures. As they move out, an invasive grass from Africa called buffelgrass is moving in. And because buffelgrass is better able to withstand prolonged dry conditions, it's beginning to crowd out some of the remaining native species. And this is altering the entire desert ecosystem.